if the new iPhone comes out and that joint is $1,200, you will be in line for that iPhone to drop your dollars at Apple. Or if the new pair of sneakers comes out from whomever it is that is fancy and free in the NBA, you will be in line or online going to buy that thing, right? But when it comes to travel, you'll see something with a similar cost and you get what we call sticker shock. It's like, they want me to pay $1,000, $2,000 to go to said place? All right, so before we dive in, I want to talk about not being able to afford to travel, right? Because I know that's like the biggest thing that I hear my clients say, you know, just people in general. A lot of people always think they can't afford to travel. So I want to talk about an experience I had where I couldn't afford to travel and how I made it happen. So a few years ago, we were celebrating my mom's 50th birthday. And if you saw my post from earlier today, you'll see a little bit about what happened. And so what I wanted to do was go to Rome. Like, I wanted to go to Rome with my mom and my grandmother. I wanted to pay for them all to go with me. I wanted to have it be, you know, a whole potentially week-long experience and all of the things, right? But the way my coin was set up, it wasn't gonna go down, right? At that point, you know, I just couldn't afford to pay for all of it. It's a lot more expensive. It's expensive to go to Europe in general, specifically to Rome, right? So I was like, shoot, can't go to Rome. Like, what is we gonna do? So I got the idea to go somewhere potentially closer, because the goal of the trip was really to do something with my mom and my grandmother, to have a good time, to have a girls trip, to celebrate life, right? Do something that was memorable. So it's like, well, I don't have to go all the way to Rome to do that, even though it's a destination that we definitely want to go to, right? So what I decided to do instead was find something a little closer. So we ended up going to Jamaica, and again, I was, you know, like, I'm just paying for everybody to go because, you know, I do this travel thing. And so what I ended up doing was finding a really good deal on this site called Cheap Caribbean. If you're not familiar with it, check it out. Cheap Caribbean. They have some really good packages. And we were able to go and stay for 4 days. We had flights included. We had food included. We had drinks included. We had shows included. And it costs, you know, pretty much the same as a 3-night stay in a Hilton in the United States, right? For all of that. So that is why I wanted to talk about what you can do instead, specifically today, when you feel like you can't afford to travel. Now, I want to put this disclaimer out there. If you are scraping by, if you are truly somebody who's scraping by, like you don't have the dollars for the necessities in your life, then we're gonna get the dollars for the necessities first. We're not gonna worry about the travel. We're gonna get the dollars for the necessities. Or, you know, maybe even if you don't have the dollars for traveling and you're not scraping by, but you really don't have a lot of expendable income, for that I would say just scale back, right? So in my scale back, I mean scale back your expectations of where you're going. Focus on some local things. Like, it's plenty to do in your city that you probably don't even know about, or you probably haven't looked into, because you're just so used to the same routine of doing the same thing every time, right? You know, you drive to work, you drive home, you drive to church, you drive home. You know, there's probably way more to your city that you haven't seen yet. So I will say that. And you can do that until you're in a better place financially. However, what I know is that most of my audience is not scraping by. You are not even the person who doesn't have some expendable income, right? And you know, if you have expendable income, if you have other luxuries in your life. So I know that's not the case for the majority of my audience. So I wanted to talk about some of the crucial mistakes that I know that you're doing, and I also know that my clients do, when they feel like they can't afford to travel, but they really can, and it's because they're doing these things, right? So the first mistake is, and this is like a combined one. I was gonna do 2 separate ones, but this is all together. The first mistake is that you have an addiction to things over experiences, and you also care too much about appearances. I'm gonna say that again. You have an addiction to things over experiences, and you care too much about appearances, right? So what that means is, if the new iPhone comes out and that joint is $1,200, you will be in line for that iPhone to drop your dollars at Apple. Or if the new pair of sneakers comes out from whomever it is that is fancy and free in the NBA, you will be in line or online going to buy that thing, right? But when it comes to travel, you'll see something with a similar cost and you get what we call sticker shock. It's like, they want me to pay $1,000, $2,000 to go to said place, right? So that's the thing. Like, if you shift your mindset, right, a lot of times you are spending those same dollars on things. And there's a like a research paper that I want to talk more about in some of the content that I create that specifically talks about how people usually at the end of their life, right, they usually are more excited about, have more ties to, have more memories from the experiences that they had than the things that they bought. And so later in life, you will really want those experiences more than those things, right? So maybe you don't have maybe it's not the big things, right? Maybe you're not an iPhone person. It could be Starbucks coffee. That is a thing, right? It could be Starbucks coffee. It could be subscriptions to everything. Netflix, Hulu, what else? I don't even know. Whatever it is, like, you could be addicted to those things, right? As opposed to experiences, right? And most of the time, you know, those little habits add up. You know, if you were to sit back and think about, you know, all right, I'm only spending potentially $3 a day on Starbucks, right? Well, $3 a day times 30 days a month is $90. And I can find you a flight somewhere from where you are in the United States to somewhere else far away from you for probably that much. And we're going to talk about that a little later. So that's one thing, right? So the biggest takeaway from that is reprioritize your expenses, right? Think about what you can potentially fall back on so that you can reprioritize and spend your dollars in a place where you want to. If it be travel, then make that happen. The other thing is being worried about appearances. And I think that ties, that's why I put them together, because they tie together. Whether it's the appearance of the type of house you live in, the type of car you drive, you know, what you look like, your hair, your clothes, whatever it is. Like, if you're caring too much about that, and so you're investing all of your energy into that, then you won't be able to afford to travel because your coins will go into that. So it's really like, again, you know, determining what's really important to you. Do you really need that weekly pedicure and manicure? Do you need that monthly hairdo, whether it's braids, sewing, whatever it is? Like, do you really need it? Especially with COVID, we don't need nothing at this point because we can't go nowhere for the most part. Well, can't go anywhere far yet. But yeah, like, do you and COVID, I think, has really taught people what they really need, like the difference between a need and a want, right? So figure out, you know, what are some of the things that you can get rid of that you don't really need, or that you can stretch the time between them longer so that you're not having to pay for them weekly, monthly, you know, quarterly, whatever it is. Because sometimes you just buying stuff because you're bored. Sometimes you're just buying stuff because you're bored. Like, stop buying stuff because you're bored. Dollars can go somewhere else. And particularly if you're somebody who wants to travel and you want to add more travel, they can go to your travel fund. And we're going to talk about that in a few seconds. The next mistake that I know that people do is you're using the path of least resistance in order to plan your trips. So you're lazily looking up flights and hotels, and you're investing in just whatever pre-built package that somebody else built for you. But you're not really taking any time to figure things out on your own, right? So say you're going somewhere, you just go to the airline site, right? You just go to delta.com and you look there for your flight. You know, for the hotel, you just go to, you know, what is it, Quality Inn, you go to the Hilton.com, you go to Best Western, you look there for your flight. And then, for instance, if you want to go far away, you're like, I'm gonna just find somebody else to build this itinerary for me because I don't do all that, right? So, or you're saying, you know, you just allow, you know, most of the time, as long as somebody else has built it for you, you don't consider, what could I add to this? What could I take away from this so that I can make this experience more specific to me, right? So that's another thing that I know people are doing that is a huge mistake. Like, you're just being super lazy with your planning, and it's mostly because you don't know where to go and you don't know how to use the sites, right? So one of the things I suggest to, you know, to my clients and to my friends is get on the Googles. I consider myself a Google ninja. I can find you anything on Google literally in like 10 minutes because I am a search engine in my mind. But specifically around travel, I can find you anything. Really comfortable with that. Phone a travel friend or DM me, right? If you're looking to build an itinerary, because it's important. The savings come in on the strategy side. Check out some sites like some flight aggregator sites. And that basically means they're sites that bring in all of the flight costs from different types of sites. So they bring it in from the airline site, they bring it in from like the Expedias and the Travelocity sites, which are like booking sites, and then they pull together all of the potential prices for you so that you can really assess like what is the cheapest flight, right? And maybe you're not going with cheapest, maybe you're going with fastest, right? And maybe you're not going with fastest, maybe you're going with the best. So the best is going to be something that's in the middle between cheapest and the quickest, right? But use some sites like Skyscanner is a really good flight aggregator site. Kayak is one of my favorite flight aggregator sites. Google Flights is another site that you can use when you're looking for flights. Use those in order to find your flights and really get to know those sites well, right? There's a lot of different functionality in there. I teach a lot of that to my clients, how to use these, you know, in the best way, but use them for the hotels. Like, make sure that you use aggregators for them as well. So first of all, I have not bought a hotel room on a hotel site in I don't even know how long. I just don't do it. I'm either on Airbnb, I'm on VRBO, or I'm on potentially a site called Hotwire, right? If I'm really looking for a hotel. But I also haven't stayed in a hotel in a while because I just like the home shares better because they're cheaper, but they also have a more of a, I don't know, like a more of a homely feel than a hotel room sometimes. Especially if I'm staying somewhere for a long time, I don't want to feel like I'm in a hotel. But yeah, get on those sites. Go to TripAdvisor. TripAdvisor is going to help you plan everything from the experiences to the hotel. I don't know if TripAdvisor has flights, but check it out. Reviews on reviews on reviews, pictures, all the kind of things, as well as like a site like booking.com. Use those sites in order to build your itinerary, and then enjoy the experience of building your itinerary, right? Make that an experience. The creation of your itinerary should be an experience as well, right? Where do you want to go? It should be exciting. Otherwise, why are you going? What do you want to do? Why do you want to do it, right? Who are you taking with you? What do you want to see? What do you want to feel? Think about those things when you're planning your trip, and allow yourself to get into that mind space and that emotion when you're actually building your trip, right? So that's mistake number 2. Number 3 is that you don't know how much you need and your savings is not on autopilot, right? So a lot of times people say, I can't afford to travel. And that usually means, one, I have a limiting belief that travel is super expensive. That's number 1. Then it also can mean that they haven't really decided where they want to go or what they want to do there. So they also don't know how much it costs, right? The true cost, right? They haven't gone to the sites that I was just talking about and actually mapped out the cost, right? In a way that isn't the lazy way, but is in a way where they actually like took the time to research it. And then also are assuming that the things that they think are expensive are included. Right, so they're like, oh, you know, if I'm going to somewhere on the African continent, I'm gonna need a visa, I'm gonna need vaccines, I'm gonna need all these things, right? And that's not the case for everywhere you go, right? So again, they haven't done the research. There's that piece of it, but there's also the piece of you have not prioritized traveling, and then you also haven't put your money where your priority is and set it on autopilot, right? So you should be having a saving or a travel fund. You should, if it's important to you, you should potentially have a little bit going toward a fund every month, every week, whatever. That latte you decide not to get, put that money into your travel fund. Because the cool thing about having a travel fund is, and by travel fund I don't mean your normal bank account, I mean a separate bank account with potentially in a separate bank with a separate name that is strictly just for traveling, period. So like, make sure that you move that money to somewhere else. So because the more you start to grow it bigger and bigger, you will start to want to contribute to it more, right? You'll be like, I wasn't even paying attention this time, I got $200, right? Like, where did $200 come from? So some of the apps that you can use in order to do that are Digit. It's a really good app. It's an app for your phone that you can use, and it will automatically take, so it does two things. You can set actual goals and say, I want a specific amount to come out. Or Digit can just learn your spending habits, and it'll automatically take some of your extra out of your account for you without you really even paying attention to it. So it'll be like, oh, you know, she usually has $4,000 a month in her account. She usually only spends, you know, $3,500. So she usually has $500 left. So let's just take out $100 because we know she's gonna have a $400 cushion, right? Next thing you know, your travel fund is $400 because it's been 4 months and you weren't paying attention. The other app is called Capital with a Q, and it does the same thing. It lets you actually set goals in it. So you can say, this is my travel goal to go to Ghana. And you'll say, I'll set it. I want to have $3,000 for Ghana by December of 2021. And it'll be like, okay, this is what we need to do. This is how much we need to take out. We're going to take out this amount. Like, so use the apps, leverage the apps and put it on autopilot. Because one, you're going to forget. Two, you're not going to reprioritize that money the way you should. And three, it allows you to set it and forget it. Because who needs something else to worry about, right? We on 5. This is the last one. And this is a good one. This is the key thing that will have you always missing out on the fun and the freedom of travel, right? And it's not being flexible. You're not flexible with regard to where you're going and when you're going. And I know there are certain places that you absolutely want to go. Like, you have your mind set on whatever, Cancun. We're going to Cancun. It's set on, we're going to Miami. At some point, we're going to Ghana, right? So we have those places. Those are places I potentially call life list places. But a lot of the major places can be potentially expensive to go to if you set a specific time that you have to go, right? So if you expand your horizons a bit, right? Let's say we don't decide where we're going. We don't decide when we're going or where we're going first. We decide how much we want to spend. Right? So you don't decide where you're going or when you're going first. You decide how much you want to spend. All right? So say you have $100, right? You want to spend $100 on your flight, and potentially you want to spend, another $300 or so for the weekend, right? To go somewhere. So now you've decided on how much you want to spend on your trip. Then you can go to the sites that I talked about earlier. Say, for instance, Skyscanner. That's a really good site to use. You can go to Skyscanner. You can say, all right, I live in, for instance, Philadelphia. Where can I go in the world where my flight is going to be $100 to get there? Where can I go? And you can literally put in, I want to go from Philadelphia to search everywhere. And then in Skyscanner, you also can say, I want you to just give me back the cheapest month to go, right? So I haven't decided when I want to go. What's the cheapest month to go to wherever I'm going? Show me those on the map. And it'll show you those on the map. And it's really great because there's places, literally, there's places that you can go to for less than $100 round trip, as long as you haven't decided the day that you have to go and that you're going to that specific destination based on, an event or whatever. So some of the things that I found on there is like, I found an $80 flight from Philadelphia to Puerto Rico round trip. I found a $131 flight round trip from Philadelphia to Miami. I saw this and I didn't even dig into it because I was like, this can't be right. Something on there said it was a $21 flight to somewhere international from Philadelphia, and I can't even remember what it was. It makes me actually want to look it up because I can't remember, but it literally was like $21. Now that may also be because of COVID. I don't know, but Either way, I know you got $21. Like, so use these type of sites, right? Be flexible. Don't always specifically determine I'm going on this day. Let your budget decide where you're going, and then let your the sites tell you what's available and what's affordable based on your budget, right? That way you are able to travel regardless. Like I said in my post today, I was like, you may not be able to go everywhere, but you can go somewhere, right? You may not be able to go where you want to go when you want to go, but there is somewhere you can go. And really what I always tell people is travel is about the experience more than the destination. You assume it's about the destination, but it's not. It's about the experience. For instance, if you're looking to go relax, unwind, hear some water, hear a palm tree, get some sun, be in your bathing suit, how many places can you go to do that? Too many to even consider, right? Even if you add in this a specific type of food, okay, I want Spanish food. How many places can you go do that? Right? So it's really more about the experience than it is about the specific destination. Sometimes we want to do specific destinations for specific things that we want to see, but a lot of times it's more about the experience. So if you can create the experience until you can afford the destination that you really want to go to, that's another way to be able to afford travel. So that's all I have, y'all. I hope this was helpful. If you learned something, say something, drop me a comment, let me know what else you want to know. I'm going to start talking more about traveling in COVID because I'm planning some trips. And of course, you know, COVID ain't went nowhere. We still in COVID. So if there's something specific that you want to learn about, what you need to know, right? Some people are actually not comfortable with traveling at all. Some people are more comfortable. Some people are considering being comfortable in a few months, right? In the meantime, cheers to your travels. Peace.